Tonight I'm going to be a part of, and I know this is pretty fun sounding. It's fun as it sounds. A part of a parade. I'm going to be a part of a parade that was started a number of years ago. It's just in my parents' neighborhood. It's still a big deal, okay? Yeah, it is a big deal to me. It's worth, just so you're clear, it's worth me driving all the way back to Harrisburg for, because I'm going to go back to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I'm going to be a part of this parade because New Year's Eve and my parents, they're just, it's crazy. It's fun. I always like to tell people, like, listen, not like it's like forbidden in our house, but there's never any alcohol on Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, and we still have a wild and crazy party. So without any alcohol helping, we still get rowdy, make a whole scene, and at the ball drop at like New Year's, at like the actual midnight, what happens is all the kids and all the adults and everyone goes outside, starts making pots and pans, loud noise makers. Like literally, my mom gives us wooden spoons and gives us random, kitchenware, and we're like knocking it as we go around the neighborhood. And the best part of it is that we've been doing it for so many years. The neighbors all come out. Like a lot of neighbors will come out, and some of them have even started joining, and they'll like have their pots and pans, and they flicker their lights on their porches and all kind of stuff. It's a good old time. It really is, and it's been funny to see that like still happen because over the years that like when I grew up in that house, because that's the house that I grew up in. When I grew up in that house, the neighborhood looked different. It is changed ethnically in major ways, so that like a lot of the people are unfamiliar, both like to me, both like we speak different languages sometimes, different cultures and all that, and they celebrate different things. So my mom was really disappointed because she was like, "Oh my gosh, all of my Nepal neighbors had such beautiful lights just a couple weeks ago, but they're taking them down, so we can't have our lights at the same time." And I'm like, well, you should have set up for Christmas earlier, But yeah, they celebrate different holidays because they're from a different culture. And it's interesting. I was thinking about that this week. I was like, you know what? What we choose to celebrate says a whole lot about us. It does. If we choose to celebrate or not also says a lot about us too. If we choose to celebrate or not, what you choose to celebrate tells something about people and individuals as well as groups. Because sometimes, have you ever been in a moment in a conversation where somebody, there's two different ones here. One where you're really excited about something and you're telling them, and they seem to be like waiting for the punchline, but you've already delivered it. You're like, no, I already told you the good thing. You should be celebrating now. You ever have those moments? Yeah, like it's kind of awkward because you're like, oh, for me this is exciting. For me, what I already shared with you is exciting, but you're kind of like, oh, is that it? But then there's other moments where they do it to you, right? Where somebody's expecting you to be more excited than you are, and you're like, listen, like there's some conversations, some people like my brothers are all into hunting, so sometimes I'm just like, cool. I go to the grocery store and get my meat. It gets a little chilly in that, section right there for a few seconds, but it's not nearly as much as, in the woods all week. But anyway, but it really is important that we celebrate the right things. It is. It really is. And the reality here is I was thinking about today and the end of the year, and we're going to celebrate some things together as a church today, that like life as we know it until we enter heaven will always be a mixture of wins and losses, of subpar mixed with the sublime, of moments to memorialize as well as mixed with moments to mourn. That is the reality of life. And I wish it weren't so, but I look forward to the day when it won't be. I look forward to the day when it'll be all good all the time. But up until that point, it will continually be mixture of like, man, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, and it's going to be like that sometimes in life. And it's also critical then that we recognize the richness of moments, no matter how simple, that are worthy of appreciation. Because I think it's so good for your soul to be a person who doesn't need it to be the perfect 10 to go ahead and go, okay, let me stop. I'll take a moment and I'll say something good about it. Yeah, I'll notice that this was a good thing. It is really good for us, even as adults, to be able to be simple in our celebration. To go, you know what, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Even that simple thing over there, that's a good thing. I'm going to celebrate that. Yeah, I want to be a person, I'll just tell you this. As a person, I want to be the kind of person that people love telling good news to. Because I want to be a kind of person that is quick to celebrate and is not, like, oh, okay, well, if that's cool for you. I think there's something Jesus-like in being like, that's awesome. That is incredible. I am so happy for you. And To be clear, to have certain times in the year that we tend to do this does not diminish the value in doing it. I was thinking about that too. I think sometimes we think, like, oh, you have to do it. You know the times. Obviously, Thanksgiving. You got to be thankful around Thanksgiving. So we will sometimes at Alive, we'll have a moment where we get together and we say, hey, what are some things you're thankful for? I did it a couple years ago. I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I don't know if I ever want to hand the mic to anybody again, because you never know what people are going to say in a diverse church like ours. But anyway, but there's that. And in our church around Valentine's Day, we'll also, every year, we'll have a little bit of celebration, because in case you didn't know, back 7.5 years ago on Valentine's Day, Alive Church had its first service. So on Valentine's Day, we kind of like celebrate love and love. Hey, yeah. That like we love that we get to do this together. And Madeline loves sharing Valentine's Day with the church. She really does. But anyway, we celebrate a lot of the things every Valentine's Day, Thanksgiving. And at the end of the year, it makes sense also to celebrate things, because we want to enter into new things rightly, right? By appreciating the old things. And the old things in this case are literally like some of them a few weeks ago, but still worth being celebrated anyway. And so one of the verses that I really want us to look at today, Psalm 100, 4-5, it says, enter his gates. This is God's gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. For the Lord is good, his steadfast love endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations. So it's fitting for us to enter into the presence of God and into his courts with thanksgiving, to go into prayer. Sometimes you maybe heard that, like, hey, when you're praying, make sure to thank God, which is generally a good idea, I think. Because unfortunately, I think if we only come to God ever with a, hey, I need something, it's like a really messed up relationship where you're never stopping to go, and also thank you. Thank you for also answering prayers and doing things. But I don't think it's just a prayer verse here. I think when we go into the gates of new years, of new seasons, of new things in our life, it's good to enter into these moments of entering into a new season with thanksgiving for what's already passed, for what we've already been through, what we've experienced, and all that. Again, like I said, we want to enter into new things rightly by appreciating the old things. I personally have been reading in my time with the Lord through Deuteronomy, which is as riveting sometimes as you'd think. But Deuteronomy is kind of actually a fun one. It is actually better than I'm not saying there's better and worse. I need you to know, like, all scripture is God-breathed and inspired by the Holy Spirit, that is useful for teaching and rebuking and the discipling of our hearts and souls. Anyway, but Deuteronomy is as far as the Pentateuch, which is the first 5 books of the Bible, as far as the law goes, it's kind of interesting because it's basically Moses when I know I'm going to die. I've been leading you guys for a while. I know I'm going to die. So I know I've told you this before, but one more time. It's kind of like that. Like, it really is the recap of, like, okay, just to remind you, here's what God did for us, bringing us out of Egypt and bringing us into this new land. And then here's what he told us. And also here's that stupid thing you did when I was on the mountain for a little while. You remember? I mean, you didn't do it, but your parents did, but you heard about it, didn't you? Like, he's got that old grumpy kind of curmudgeon-y kind of vibe going on there. But he's got this loving, tender heart as well, Moses does, where he's just like, I want you to know how good God's been. And that's one of the things that, like, has been so interesting to me as I've been reading it, is that he's not just saying, don't you forget. No, don't you forget. You got to do this. You got to do that. It's always born out of don't forget how good he's been. So yeah, don't make idols because they didn't do anything for you. They're worthless. And he starts getting into, like, yeah, when you go into the land, don't start worshiping their gods and don't disobey God because he's been so good. He's been so good. And I love how he rehearses the goodness of God that helps them then to rest in the goodness of God. And I think it is sometimes good for us to rehearse the goodness of God so that we can better enter into the rest of the goodness of God. Have you ever just sat and thought about all of the bad things going on in your life sometimes? You ever done that? Yes, yeah, you have, yeah. So yesterday when I'm just kidding. No, for me, there's a memorable moment when I was a youth pastor. This is actually not the last church there in Maryland, but in Pennsylvania. I had worked with I had a friend who was at another church. We had worked together on doing a winter retreat combined together. So here I am, a fairly young youth pastor, but I'm like, we're going to have our own winter retreat that we made and we came up with, and our students are going to be blessed by it. And they were in some ways. In fact, they were blessed by having such a fun time having a snowball fight, because there was snow, because we in Pennsylvania, against me. All of the students Against me, yeah, and they cornered me. Because I've always been kind of the small and scrappy one. So I was like, forget this. I ran ahead of them, which I'm a little faster than most of them. Jump into one of the church vans, lock it, and proceeded to just sit in a church van for about an hour. Yeah, sitting there because I was like, I'll wait you out. I know that you have curfew, and I don't. So, but there's nothing like being a 20-something-year-old guy who's sitting in a van in the cold going, I have no way out because these kids are bullying me. It was a moment for me and God to kind of, okay, God. Uh, uh, but like, again, not to be overly dramatic, but I think it's okay that, I have emotions and that I talk about them sometimes. I wept, not in the van. I didn't let them see me cry. But when they were gone and I got out of the van, it was a moment for me. I just remember praying and crying out to the Lord and just being like, relationally, it was just a wreck. It had just gotten recently a wreck, and one of my friends had betrayed some trust in that and as well, and then financially, did I mention I was a youth pastor? So financially it was not good, and so I was lamenting all the financial things that were going on. I think I even had some health things that were starting to concern me. It just felt like it was all of the alleys, ALY, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, all the alleys were wrong in my life. And so I just started crying out to God, and I was like, all of these areas, all these quadrants in my life, nothing's going right. And I've done like some of you have done. I've just rehearsed all of the wrong things going on in my life. I went through the list, and I was like, man, this and this and this, and if you've ever done that, if you've had your moments of just going through and like, this is going wrong and this is going wrong, how did it make you feel? Yeah, it made you feel awful. It gave you, if you already felt the weightiness of life, you did. That's why you're having the moment. But then you felt it even more. You felt the weightiness. You felt the heaviness. And I'm really convinced that it's not good for us to deny the junk going on in our lives, the bad parts, the sad parts. But if we just decided that whenever you've sat in those moments and you've gone ahead and rehearsed all the wrong things, all the bad things, all the terrible things, how it made you feel, I wonder if God intends for us to have rehearsing all the good things that he's done, all the small wins, all the wonderful little small things that I almost forgot about that. I wonder if he intends for that to be a little bit encouraging for us to do the opposite thing. That maybe, just maybe, he's like, I care about you. I want what's best for you. So it's good for you. Sit back sometimes and pile on some of the good stuff. Pile on some of the celebration. The more we pile on, even the small pieces, the more it piles on and we start to go, this is starting to feel differently. This is starting to weigh on my shoulders in a really good way. So there's one more verse and then we're gonna do some piling. Yeah? Okay. Psalms in the good way, right? The good kind of. Psalm 77, 11 to 14. David writes, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. I will ponder all your work and meditate on your mighty deeds. Your way, O God, is holy. Well, God is great like our God. You are the God who works wonders. You've made known your might among the peoples. And so today, just so we're clear, what we're celebrating as we're going to go through kind of a recap of 2023 is we are not celebrating a live church per se. We're not celebrating me or our team leaders or you, as amazing as you are, but what we're celebrating is what God has done in amongst us. We're celebrating the things that we've gotten to be a part of in various ways. And so we're going to go ahead and kind of pile on some of the good things that God has done, because here's what happens. As David does this, as he writes this, he's going, I'm going to remember, I'm going to see these things, and I'm going to appreciate them, but it kind of creates this sense of the more I do that, the more it gives me a better and full picture. It's not just to look at the year recap and a cool, glance kind of thing. It's getting us a fuller picture of this is who God is. You are the God who works wonders. That's who you are. You are, as we sing sometimes, you are the way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. Okay, right. I almost just said it's a good one. It's a good one. That is who he is. That is who he is. That is who he is. Some of y'all, you don't get it because you don't know how the bridge goes or something like that. Anyway, so we're going to train our eyes not just to see the subpar, but to see the sublime as well. And I thought it'd be good for us to do communally, for us to take some time to remember and not shy away from letting our hearts be lifted up a little bit from doing this. Okay? So, back 364 days ago, I think it matched. 364. Oh, no, not yet. I told Randy because she got kind of put into that position this morning, and I was like, oh, of all days for you to like last minute be asked to do this, one of the worst days. So thanks, give it up for Randy. She's going to be doing. She's basically the clicker on the family slideshow. This is a family slideshow moment. That's actually a terrible picture. Don't image that because nobody likes those. Okay, this will be fun. All right, but back 364 days ago, we decided to have a brunch New Year's Day service because New Year's Day fell on Sunday. And we thought, you know what, let's have food then. And let's make it a good Sunday morning. As we start off this new year, and it was going to be my first Sunday of the new year, but also my last Sunday with a live church for a little while. Because right after New Year's Day, Madeline and I went on sabbatical. After 7 years of pastoring this church, it was due for that. It's every 7 years, year of Jubilee, to go on a sabbatical, and it was meant to be a time of refreshing and refocusing. But my question was, how's this going to go over? Like, for me to choose to go, I mean, after all that work and all that, and we're a small church, in case you didn't figure that out, and we're kind of a simple church in a lot of ways, too, so we don't have a lot of paid staff, and we don't have a lot of things that are, I don't know, I just wasn't sure. I've never been gone for 40 days and not tinkered and not been a part of it. Like, I love my Sabbath every week, but 40 days straight, that's a lot. And I'm not arrogant about my, awesomeness, but I'm not stupid either. I do realize that a lead pastor in a church this size matters. So anyway, can I be really real with y'all? Yes, sir. But okay, some of y'all said yes. But I needed it. Madeline and I both needed it because not only 7 years and you pour out a lot and it's going to be poured back into, but 2022 was one of those years for us. It was one of those years where we got the mess kicked out of us, knocked down, and then kept on getting kicked while we were knocked down. And I'm not saying that so you can be like, oh, poor Jonathan, feel bad for me. I'm just saying we know what it's like. I know what it's like to have years that you are just over, that you're just done with. And 2022 was one of those years for us. And again, being very real, I think it's safe to do now, it was to that point where I was quite frankly going, God, I'm not sure that I want to keep pastoring this church and keep doing this. If I come back and it's not there, then I'll take that as a sign that it wasn't meant to be. And that's nothing against any of you, just so you're clear. That's not a thing against. It's just the matter of ministry is really tough, and it had kicked the mess out of me, and it had left me to a point where, just quite frankly, if it were up to me, I would make a lot more money, have a lot less hours, and a lot less drama, and I would be enjoying it. But I wouldn't be doing what God called me to do, and that's what I figured out in sabbatical. So I came back, and I was like, let's do it. But it really was a time of refreshing and renewal, and lots of good bike rides, because it was in Charleston, South Carolina, for a month of it. So it was beautiful. It was cold here. It was really nice to get away. But yeah, so questions of okay, what's Alive going to do as far as things like life groups that need to keep on getting trained for, and administration and pastoral care. And I just want to brag on this church because you know what? For 40 days I was gone, and I really was. I was not, around. I wasn't on call really, except for I think we had 2 or 3 things in that whole 40 days. I think it was, well, you only had 1, but then I had another person. My admin assistant's we only one, and it was a really important one. It was the fire department, we will shut you down if you don't get this taken care of. And I was like, yeah, you can call me for that. Let's get this taken care of. But Ron, who's back there with the kiddos, I think today, took care of training life group leaders in my stead. Pastoral care, you guys took care of each other in many ways. Now we can do it, Randy. We had guest speakers different speakers that came in and told us the one about Jesus, right? And we did a series, Tell Me the One About Jesus, and it was so fun to be able to see them get creative in different stories of Jesus' life. And we had 7 different voices over those 7 Sundays, and it was really a fun season for us as a church. I really think, by the way, that one of the reasons 2023 has been so sweet is because a live church got to see that this isn't about Jonathan. That we can do this without him. Thanks very much for saying it with no tone. We can do this without him, but it really it's about Jesus. This church is about Jesus. And so even in my absence, the church went well. Not only did we start life groups, but life groups have continued throughout the year. I even got to write curriculum for one this fall, and it's been fun to be seeing life groups grow. We did a sermon series, and then we came back. I came back, rather. We came back and got to be preaching this series leading up to Easter called Dying to Be Alive. the life and death battle over your soul. And yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one as we kind of talked about the war in our souls that pulls us towards sin, and what does it look like to live in victory, and not in a victory that we have to fight in our own strength for, but recognizing that as we die to ourselves actually and embrace the life that comes in Jesus, we get to die to be alive. It was a great series, I thought. But what's always cool in those kind of moments is getting really practical and seeing new life happen. And so in March, we actually had baptism Sunday, and Laurel, and I think maybe another person, I don't know. Oh, yeah, Amber, you got baptized, right? Yeah, got baptized in March, and then we also had Next Steps starting, and we try to get that more regular. In fact, we've had 16 people different people go through Next Steps this year. 16 people alone, at least 16 people. Our records are a little spotty. Go through Next Steps. And then in April, we had Easter, because we do that every year. And then we started a new series called Hopefully. Sorry, I said that wrong. It was Hopefully. Yeah. I can't believe I messed that up after all those weeks. But it was a great series looking at what does it look like to have hope in Jesus. And then in May, we had our first ladies fellowship brunch. And so the ladies got to hang out here and have a sweet time together, and that's not that. So I'm in that one, along with a bunch of us guys in that one. So that was, anyway, the ladies fellowship brunch was a sweet time of fellowship that was planned by some amazing people in our church. And then also in May, on May 20th, I happen to know that date, it's my birthday, Serve Day number 1 happened. You're like, wait, number 1? Yeah, we had 2 Serve Days this year. Yeah, so Serve Day number 1 happened, and we had over 30 people from a couple different churches tackling 3 different projects where we got to bless our community. And then so that was what we did in May. We said, hey, why don't we bless our community and bless our city in different ways? And then I said, you know what? A lot of churches experiencing some cool moments, and we've also been in this building for a year and a half. I think if we're going to be in here for another year and a half, which our lease is a 3-year lease, so year and a half, and maybe beyond, then we should probably renovate and make this space work a little bit better for us. So I tossed out the idea of renovation, and in June, it got started. Because, and I still am just like blown away by the goodness of God and how this worked out, that it really was. And again, I'm not trying to but I don't have audible moments with the Lord very often where, Jonathan, this is what you must do. I'd love that, but generally what happened was I was thinking about this, praying about this, talking with friends about their experiences in finding new buildings, because I was like, listen, Westwood's great, but maybe, and so anyway, it got to a point where I was like, no, God wants us to be here, and if we're going to be here, I think we should do this renovation. The contractor said about $14,000, and I was like, all right, I feel like God's in this. We'll see. So that's what sometimes in life, just so you know, there's not going to be, I think people often when they ask me, and I ask them, what can I be praying for you about? Like, I think 50% of the time, it's clarity. Because we all want clarity, right? We'd all love to wake up, and there's an old TV show where the guy wakes up and he gets the newspaper for the next day. This is a random reference here. But anyway, I think you would love that from God, from your Heavenly Father, and here's what I want you to do today. That'd be pretty awesome. He doesn't do that. Very often. I'm not trying to burst any bubbles, but so what he does is he tells me, I think he leads me to this renovation. But I put it before the church and I'm like, we'll see. So if I'm like, hey, we're going to have to raise above and beyond to be able to have this happen, it's $14,000. I don't know how we're going to come up with it. If nobody gives, or if it's $1, okay. I'll kind of back up a little bit and realize, okay, that's embarrassing. I didn't hear from God. Okay. And I felt like God was just being so sweet, because the very next day I got word of somebody in the church who wanted to give $14,000 to pay for it. So, yeah. So, okay. Well, thanks, God. That was very much not the thing that I was saying about could have happened. It was instead a very kind of okay, good. And it was just sweet too. There's nothing like getting to see God work through us and being able to be a part of that. And around that same time that we were having that happen, we got to have some of our own original worship songs being used to lead us in worship. Callan, our amazing worship leader, had gone ahead and written some songs, and we were singing songs, and they were great worship songs that were actually written in this house. And that is a really cool thing to have happened in 2023. And then also, this is again one of those miracle things. I'm telling you what. On a Monday, they started the renovation when we finally did that. And then on the following Sunday, it was done. I'm telling you what. And so then on that Sunday, we got to pack this place out because we had our global partners who are in Northern Africa, and they came and they got to spend some time with us and speak, and we got to hear from them because they were stateside. It was so fun to hear from them and spend time with them along with some other extra friends who wanted to hear them and who are friends with them. And we got to really like have our first Sunday in this newly renovated space be a very can I be honest with you? Again, I've already asked. I'm just going to assume you're saying yes. Okay. I was really afraid because what renovation project gets started on a Monday and done on a Saturday? Like, we're going to have it done in a week. I'm like, listen, in case you ever have a renovation thing at your home or anything like that, it's going to cost you more and it's going to take longer. It did one of those two. It did cost us more. And so it definitely did that. But it was done. And so we got to actually have that first Sunday be a great Sunday for our friends who were coming in. And then that night we got to go over to the Logan's house, and some of us got to spend time with them and just hear stories of what's going on in their ministry and how they're doing. And that was really exciting because for us at Alive, we have like three major like focuses. The first one would be we want you to have life-changing encounters with God. We want you to have God meet you and change your life, and you have these encounters where he changes your life. We want you to have life-enriching relationships with each other. We believe that this whole following God thing isn't meant to be a solo thing. You're supposed to do it in community. But then it's also not ending there. We want you to have life-giving opportunities to go ahead and serve our community and our world. So, what a better way than serving our world through other people that are going all over the world and all that. And so around that same time, my lovely wife, Madeline, is beginning to really develop a missions mobilization team that would eventually go ahead and congeal into a team and would work on, you didn't like that word? Okay. Would coalesce into a team. They'd become a team, and then they would work on a policy for, all right, what does it look like for us to have really healthy, have a church that does missions healthy? Like, what does it look like for us to stay maybe in Fredericksburg for the rest of our lives, maybe some of us, and yet still have a sense that we are connected to God's mission around the world? How do we at Alive do that? They worked so hard to create a great missions policy and got things in motion for things to come. But more on that later. But as the summer moved along, we went ahead and had these brand new things. Maybe one of my highlights for the year, midweek meal. Yeah. And midweek meal would be that substitute for life groups where it was like, well, what if we just gathered here at the church building? I'll cook most of the time, and then we'll have this long family-style seating, and we'll just eat family-style. And we'll have good food, and we'll talk about whatever God's doing in our lives. And it was so cool. And I'm telling you what, like for me, I love when like God moments happen around simple moments like a table like this. And there were plenty of them. There was laughter, there was crying. There was some of the moments of praying that happened around that table were some of the sweetest ones that happened in this space. But it really was so fun. And around that same time of getting our global partners to come visit and around midweek meal starting, we also had John step on as our hospitality team leader and officially kind of build a hospitality team instead of, hey, if you see it, come fix it, because like somebody needs to make coffee. We started having a team and really building that up. And on that note, let me just kind of say that like this was a year where I feel like over sabbatical, because while I wasn't working at Alive, I was praying for Alive on sabbatical, just so you know. Yeah. I was praying for Alive, wanting to get like refreshed and get some fresh vision for the church. And I felt like God was very succinct. Leadership development. And I'm like, well, that's basic. Yeah. But like Madeline and I sat down at a coffee shop, and she was like, what are some goals for the church specifically? And I was like, leadership development. She's like, that's great. Wrote it down. What else? I was like, yeah, leadership development. I'm a simple guy. I don't think I can take on more than one thing and do it well. And I don't even know if I did the one thing well. But Colton having to step down to take some time to spend time investing into his family, still out alive. But like Callan was suddenly a leader that needed to be developed as a worship leader. And Steph took on being treasurer this year for the first time. John being team leader of the hospitality team. Madeline building her team up. And it was a fun year for leadership development. There was a lot of developing of leaders, and it was fun to watch that happen. Then in July, we did a series that was not applicable to many of us called Getting Heated. Yeah, thanks for laughing there, Shay, because Shay knows that a lot of you are angry. She's not, but she's like, there's a lot of angry people. No, we discovered that even people like, Shay or some of us quieter people, but you quieter people, that sometimes anger can get the best of us. And what does it look like to look from Scripture? Because God has a lot to say about anger. And there's actually a lot of misunderstanding around it. So in case you missed that series, or any of these series, go back and watch them on YouTube or listen to them on SoundCloud or go refresh if you even did hear them. Because I'll just tell you, some of y'all, it wouldn't hurt you on this one. But getting heated there in the summertime, learning to let our anger be something that actually could glorify God rather than getting the best of us is really important. Around the same time, we actually got to have some not baby baptisms, some child dedications. And this year's been a fun year for us when it comes to child dedications. Sophie was one of the little babies that we dedicated. But yeah, we've had like new additions to the family. Owen Gray. Then we got Haley and Olive, which is the John and Irene's new one, by the way. She's adorable. Anyway, they're all adorable. They're all cute, and we love them all. And it's been so fun to see God grow our church in that way. And so August comes, and we do a series called Better Connected, which for some of us is a fan favorite because it was a series on prayer. And man, one of the fun things for me this year was watching our church grow in this area. Watching our church grow, and just so you know, we're gonna pray together because that's one of the things that we started doing during the series was like, what if when we gather together as the church, we prayed? I know, it was nuts. It was totally mind blowing. It was very out of the box thinking, very new, very edgy. No one's doing it. But we started saying, hey, you know what? Prayer is so important. What does it look like for us as we enter a new school year? Things are slowing down from the summer and all that. What does it look like to press into being better connected through prayer? So personal prayer lives were changed, but also corporately, it just really changed our church. So we did 3 days of prayer and fasting, and I actually took a picture of one of the nights of prayer. So it's not a great picture. It's literally my phone. Oh, that's not it, but that's a good one too. There we go. But yeah, just coming in here and just praying and just spending time going after God and listening to him and praying for the things that were on each other's hearts, encouraging one another in that way. And it was such a sweet time because I really feel like this year our church has grown a lot in worship and prayer, and really not just, okay, we're in fellowship, because one of the fun things about Alive is when we say, okay, guys, we'll see you next week, many of you are not going to bolt. Some of you will. But many of you are not going to bolt out of here. You'll fellowship. But for me, if we're a church that fellowships well but doesn't pray well or doesn't worship well, we're missing something. And we grew in that area this year, and it was really fun to see that happen. This was also around the same time, September, that we did the UMW outreach, and we went to the UMW campus and gave some free coffee out and blessed some Pop-Tarts and some Capri Suns, and those college students were blown. I mean, they were just like mind blown. Like, aha, you're giving us free coffee, and we blessed them with that and just some love and showed them that we cared about them. And then also around the same time, we started membership. We said, hey, like, it'd be really cool if we had some new jackets that could really be, just kidding. Not that, but like membership as a way of saying like, hey, what does it look like to belong to this church? And so we started working on getting membership started. And then we did a series called What Kingdom Come, coming out of that prayer series where you're praying, the Lord's Prayer, your kingdom come. Well, I was like, we should do a series based off the parables of Jesus on what he envisions his kingdom looking like. And then in October, we did a second serve day. We went ahead and said, let's bless our city again. And it was really fun because we got rained on. The people that helped out at Choices Pregnancy Center didn't mind the rain as much because they were indoors the whole time. But you know what? The rest of us are hardy people that we didn't mind it either. I've been sick ever since that day. But anyway, but we did bless this family whose daughter had cancer. And it was like that was the walkway that she was now going to be walking into her house from. And we got to make it more beautiful. And what a cool thing for us to do. To be able, by the grace of God, to be able to do, so simply to make a big difference in that family's life. And then in November, by the grace of God, we got new global partners. And so we intentionally don't show pictures, by the way, or tell a lot about our global partners because we do record, and some people have already told me they've got family or health issues that are why they're not here today. So they're going to watch this online, and this is online. But a lot of the way Alive does missions is that we work with people that are in places where it's very sensitive. They're there as people that are not missionaries, because that wouldn't be good. But they're serving their communities, and they're blessing them in the name of Jesus. They're gathering together in homes, and they're praying, and they're watching people come to faith in Jesus and be discipled in Jesus. And one of the cool things that Madeline, as our missions mobilization team leader, shared on Christmas Eve and the Christmas Eve service Eve, was that our new global partners that we took on, they actually are producing content that goes online. So there's a lot of Turkish people that are looking for information about Jesus and wanting to know what Christianity is all about. And they're getting to find things in their language that are made for their culture through a guy who is himself a Turk who came to faith in Jesus. And it's really cool what they're doing and how God's using it. But it was so exciting for us to have finally additional global partners. So we got to have 2 families now that we're supporting. Every dime you give, it goes, a portion of it goes to supporting them. So it's just a really cool way for us to be a part of what God's doing there. And then in December, we did a series called The Gift. In case you don't remember it, wow, your memory's pretty bad. Because it's December, and it was just this month, but we did a series called The Gift, and I had the gift of being able to baptize 2 more people in our church, one of which is, one of which I've been praying for years. And so it was just a real cool thing to see Marianne get in there and get baptized, as well as Tara, and that was so cool. And God then generously blessed us through people willing to be generous, and we got to bless a family immensely with like Sky Zone playtime with her kids, because the situation at home is rough with dad being not able to be there for them during this time of year. It's just sad, it could be a sad time of year. And we got to, as a church, help make it a really happy time of the year, both for mom and the kids. And so it was a blast. And then we got to bless, we got to put money aside for legacy offering and do all kinds of exciting things in that as well. And God just really blessed, answered a lot of prayers. Oh, that's one of the things I wanted to tell you, because I don't mind telling you guys this. We got to a point with where financially the church was at coming to the end of the year, where it was another kind of like roughish year, not like rough year, but roughish year. I don't know if you've ever seen the gas prices or inflation in general, grocery prices, but giving had not been awesome, although we'd grown from last year numerically. And so we were looking, our admin assistant, our treasurer, and I, at some serious cuts to the ministry as well as to my salary, which is already meager. And I'm like, cool, this is really fun. And I only tell you all that to tell you that it was one of those, the staff were praying and we were believing that God was going to provide just what we needed. And y'all, it was December 17th, not in the legacy offering, that God just provided very miraculously, and I can't give you more details, but through people in our church that suddenly gave, and it was the amount that was okay. Kind of like the moment where months earlier God had provided miraculously, only this one was a lot more sweat. This one was a lot more okay, last minute, 11th hour, God provided for us so that as we look at 2024, we don't have to take cuts. We can go forward. We can move forward as a church. Yeah, I just felt like that was worth letting you know. There's all kinds of moments, as we've seen this year, where God answers prayer and God works. And some of them are in the ways of financial or physical things. But then I think we have a picture of this lovely young woman. But even small things like Shay. And I mean, she is small. But I don't mean but I mean that things she's stepped in to start leading worship when Callan's having her off Sunday, because we don't let our people work every Sunday. We believe rest is a good thing. And so Shay started stepping in and leading worship. And also, we've gotten to see, if you're watching this online right now, you may have seen Shay right about here on the screen, because with our video production, we've gotten to a point where the things that are on the screen show up on the screen on YouTube or whatever. When you're watching it, you can see the scriptures, you can see the pictures or whatever. And so we've updated things like that. We really have gotten creative in a lot of different ways that we've done ministry and trying to do it creatively and well. And here's one of the things I wanted to do, and I wasn't sure how this would go. If you're new to a live church, if you've come to a live church since 2023. This year, you came for the first time. Would you just raise your hand? I'm not going to get you to stand up or do anything, but yeah. Look at all those people that started coming to Alive this year. This year, we did practices of a fully alive life course and had people getting plugged into what does it look like to follow God on a regular basis, to develop that relationship with Him, and through prayer and reading the Bible. We had, again, life groups, midweek meal. We've gotten to serve our community in various ways, have people serving at a live church growing, and there's more and more people serving at a live church. And then the legacy offering for me excites me for what opportunities we have for next year. We cleared out that one room back there and actually got it to be a kid's classroom again. There's been a lot of small and silly things to celebrate, but here's the reality as we end today. You should probably come up and start playing again. I'll be honest that I tend to struggle to celebrate sometimes. And the reason is because I like things done really, really, really well. Anybody else Okay, so I'm not going to say perfectionist because that's not the perfect word for it. And I want to use the perfect word for it. Yeah, you see what I did there? I just like doing things excellently and well. And so for me, it's often difficult because I'm usually going, well, this could be better, or it's not done yet. And so I tend to be a person who struggles to stop and appreciate. And I don't want to be a person like that. I want to be a person who stops and appreciates, who sees the goodness of God all around me, who looks around and stops to look around. And I want that for us too. So I want us to spend just a few moments here, and you can actually stay seated for this, and let's just spend some time praying together. When we've done this in the past, in case you haven't been here when we've done it, I always like to ask that we're going to pray out loud, those of us who will choose to pray. So be loud so that we can hear you, because sometimes only the three people around you can hear you. We all want to be blessed by it. But I want to spend some time just praying and thanking God for this year, maybe something he's done in your life this year, and also just thanking him for his goodness. And then we're gonna end with a song of worship.